It is Monday, June 8th, 2020. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey with Center Church, and this is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel and the one who saved our souls. We've been going through the Psalms, and this week we're in Psalm 94. As a matter of fact, the rest of this week will be in these Psalms in the 90s, except for Friday where I jumped to Psalm 103. But every time we come to these Psalms, we ask ourselves basically three questions. What does this teach us about God? What does this teach us about the gospel? And then how should we respond to it? And today we'll see that Psalm 94 speaks of the justice of God, those who deny the justice of God, and then those who trust in the justice of God are joyful, and then finally the promise to the world that God will execute his judgment. So let's look at this briefly if we can. I find these are so rich that I could literally extemporaneously probably preach for 25 minutes just standing here holding this psalm in front of me. That's the richness and the depth of the Word of God. So let's jump right in here. O Lord, the God of vengeance, O God of vengeance, let your glorious justice shine forth. Arise, O judge of the earth. Give the proud what they deserve. Now, here's something, another psalm, so I don't want to spend time on it today, will really emphasize is that God's judgment and God's justice and his judgment are connected. But give the proud what they deserve. How long, O Lord? How long will the wicked be allowed to gloat? How long will they speak with arrogance? How long will these evil people boast? They crush your people, O Lord, hurting those you claim as your own. They kill widows and foreigners and murder orphans. Now, the English Standard Version, I'm reading from the New Living Translation. As I've mentioned before, I've been using it in my daily devotionals, so I'm reading from that now. But the English Standard Version translates orphans as the fatherless. And in this cry for justice that we have in Psalm 94, and in the cry for justice we have in our culture today, something that the activist media will not report on, or they do so very sparingly, is that there is definitely a connection between the injustice we see in our culture. Crime and fatherlessness are statistically connected. Now, I don't need statistics to preach the truth, because, as I've mentioned before, truth is woven into the fabric of life because of how God has designed reality. We can't get away from God's truth. So he goes on to say, so they crush God's people. They say to themselves, the Lord isn't looking. And besides, the God of Israel doesn't care. So these are two indictments we see against God in our culture today. One is the new atheism, which is internally inconsistent, because in atheism today you find a cry for justice, which is why they don't believe in God. But again, there is no justice without a judge, a singular judge. You can't have true justice if there is no lawgiver, if there is no judge. So atheism today becomes internally inconsistent. And then you have another indictment: if there is a God, he doesn't care, which is an indictment against God's character based upon what? Well, it's based upon human arrogance. How long will these proud people, how long will they speak with arrogance? How long will these evil people boast? Because that's what they're really doing in a sense when they indict God. They're boasting that I am actually more righteous than God himself. And the psalmist rebukes this type of thinking. Think again, you fools. When will you finally catch on? When will you finally realize this? These are not, you don't have to be a genius to see these points, right? And yet here people embrace them all the time. They just won't come to terms. The self-deception involved in the internal inconsistencies in both atheism and kind of this charge against God not caring. Is he deaf, the one who made your ears? Is he blind, the one who formed your eyes? He punishes the nations. Won't he also punish you? Talk about a cry for justice. God brings justice to nations. He'll bring justice to you too personally, which is a threat in one sense and a promise. And He knows everything. Doesn't he also know what you are doing? The Lord knows people's thoughts. He knows they are worthless. He's not saying people are worthless, but he is saying that human thinking, the arrogance of human thinking is worthless. Some of these ideas that are influencing culture right now, intersectionality, critical theory, critical race theory, feminism, all these philosophies of life that have no redemption, and when they are examined, they are internally inconsistent in their cry for justice, so in the long run, they are vapid, they are worthless, they don't have the substance which they claim they do, and these are the ones that dominate culture rather than the truth that God has revealed to humanity, and what we're mocked for holding up the Bible as a mirror that we can see ourselves in and see our culture in. And let me jump to the end here for the sake of time. Can unjust leaders claim that God is on their side? Leaders whose decrees permit injustice? There's a little verse all the politicians should memorize. They gang up against the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But the Lord is my fortress. My God is the mighty rock where I hide. God will turn the sins of the evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. The Lord our God will destroy them. This is the promise that the God of the universe, whatever your cry for injustice is right now, my friend, the promise is the God of the universe will execute justice. Now, is that to say Christians should not be promoting justice now? Absolutely not. But the promise is the God of the universe will execute his justice. He is a God of vengeance. Now, what has God said to you today, and what are you going to do about it?